those of you who are in different places from around the world, spanning from the US to the Caribbean to Africa and different parts of Europe, warm welcome into you for part 2 of this very important subject matter as to why we should be owning gold and precious metals in general. But we're focused today upon gold as not just, you know, an item of jewelry, which back in my day, you know, it was always the thing for, if you were a man of substance, to have a bracelet, to have a chain. And when I was young, many of the brothers who, what we used to call them in the days, an earner. They were,
or chops,
yeah,
or chops.
The chops. Chops, you know, and they used to wear, you know, you had to have a nice big chunky chain with a medallion. And many of the brothers used to have cougarans and used to have ducats. I remember one particular brother used to wear like 4 ducats at a time. So when, you know, when we used to party, you know, brothers used to come out showing how much gold they had back in those days. This is 70s, 80s. Some of you who, I know I'm showing my age, but it's okay. I wear it pretty decently. But back in those days, you had to have some kind of gold, okay?
Yeah.
And today, you know, people have moved away from generally wearing gold on one's person, you know, to more having it as some form of item of investment that can be called upon during any kind of emergency. So today we want to take a much deeper dive into gold and its importance and its long-term advantages. And as we know now, I haven't seen it at 1600, even though I think it dipped under 15 yesterday and today, but I haven't seen it this high for a long, long time. So our special guest, Brother Clive Lindsay, is going to go and give us a 360 on this so that we can, you know, be properly placed, right? And by the end of today, we should be very clear what's in our best interest, whether we should have money just sitting around in the bank or invested in something that has a future on the upward trajectory. You know, it seems as if it's only going one way. And even if it dips down at some point, it just has to bounce back. And one of the things, Clive, I want you to also synonymize and give me some context for is the relationship, if any, at some point in your presentation between cryptocurrency and gold, at some point in your presentation. Okay. So without any further delay, please, Spiritual Injection audience, show your love, appreciation for Brother Clive Lindsay, who's come back for a second week running.
Welcome back, Brother Clive.
Double portion. Oh,
double portion. Well, thanks again for having me, guys.
Gold standard, gold standard.
Welcome.
Hey, brother.
Welcome.
Thank you. So thanks for having me last week, and I see a lot of people calling for round 2, so that was brilliant. You know, really nice to hear. As we know, knowledge is power and key for us to get out of this nightmare that we're in, let's be honest. So just covering what you were talking about, having the gold chops and stuff like that, you know, you got to realize that back in the day, we were educated that gold was real money. You know, and as our generations have gone on, it's disappeared. And the reason being is we've gone into consumer bullcrap world where, including me, we want to have the nicest cars and the nicest watches and the nicest greenest lawn and the nicest roofs and all the rest, and that's put us into a lot of debt. And that's been the focus of the government, is to push this consumer society, forget about building wealth and concentrate on debt. And that also relates to the education system that we're in. We're in an education system which is very much like the factory-based education we had before with factory workers. You know, put your hand up to go toilet, yes sir, no sir, and it's all, you know, most of it's memory-based, nothing to do about personal learning, nothing to do about wealth development. I remember I did business studies at school, and not once did they mention gold, and that's madness, you know. So it's just because we've been pre-programmed to believe gold is, you know, for conspiracy theorists and crazy people, and that's them winning, you know. So it's for us to pull back the curtain and realize, no, gold is actually real money, and it's a store of value. And like you rightly stated, it just keeps going up. This is what people fail to see. We will speak to hundreds of clients here and they'll be like, oh, well, no, gold's up, I'm not interested, you know, call me if it comes down or whatever. And it doesn't work like that. Remember, your primary goal is to buy gold as a store of value, and then hopefully we make profits. Now, luckily, we're in an environment where gold is always goes up in inflation. And a beautiful statistic is, if it doesn't run in this inflationary period, which is the worst in history, then it's failed us for the first time in history. Right. And that's a fairly good bet.
Right.
Yeah.
Much,
so I just wanted to cover
much better than Arsenal winning the Premier League this year.
Well, we won't talk about that 4-0 beating yesterday, but yes, it's yeah, very similar. So I just wanted to cover that. And like you rightly stated, why have your money in the banks? I mean, across the world, we've got people across the world here. We've had 11 bail-ins already. This is not new, guys. Okay. The first trial was in Cyprus. They done a bail-in and they stole everyone's money. You could only withdraw 50 euros a day or 100 euros, and people lost a hell of a lot. The people then took the government to court, the banks to court, and said, look, this is not right. You've stolen our money, and they lost. And you will lose, because if you read your small print of any bank, you know, it states that by law, the instrument holder bears the losses of the institution. Now, most people don't know what that means. It just means you, the holder of the account, you lose your money if the bank goes bust. But the good news is they give you shares. and that's actually bad news, because obviously the shares are worthless, and that's what they've done in Cyprus. So they've done that in Zimbabwe, Argentina, Cyprus, and numerous other countries, which I can't remember off the top of my head, but it's happened before. And Cyprus was very much the template to see if they could do it and what would happen. And yes, there was riots and banks got burnt down, and that's happening across the US. We've had Fannie Mae and Wells Fargo, some of the biggest fraudsters out there. Recently, they've had windows smashed, you know, and staff assaulted because people's money's disappeared. So Citibank in the UK and across in the US, people's money's disappeared and been frozen. And that's been happening for the last few years, but rapidly now, because obviously the bailing is coming about. So I just wanted to cover those points that you said, which were really good. Crypto, we can cover that quickly. I mean, first of all, I like crypto. Very, very risky. Let's just say that, number one. I like crypto because it's about for the people, and that's why I got out of banking, you know, because I wanted to sell gold, because it's for the people. It brings us wealth and power, and that's the whole goal of Bitcoin, to bring us wealth, power, and being private and individual. But more importantly, it's decentralized. Bitcoin, the coin itself, is decentralized. Some other coins are not, like Ethereum's and so forth. And it has good potential, but the problem is you can invest into it and you can lose your money overnight. Not all of it. It's never gone to zero, but you can see it half overnight. You never see that with gold. So gold doesn't give you gray hairs. You know, I've got a few though, but you know, anyway, but it's not as volatile as Bitcoin. Bitcoin can certainly cause a lot of heart attacks, which it has done, but I like it because it's decentralized. The biggest problem is though, is it's new. You know, it's only been around for what, 10 years, 15 years or so. It's very, very new. We don't know, gold's been around for thousands of years. We don't know the background of Bitcoin. Was it Satoshi? Was it aliens? Was it the CIA? I mean, it could be anything. I believe in all of them. But it's such a corrupt and evil world. It wouldn't surprise me if the CIA set something up like this and they'll pull the plug, you know, so it's very, very risky. Also, it's digital. So, you know, we're in a world at the moment where we're going through the biggest energy crisis in history, right? The UK has screwed itself. We were meant to be self-sufficient, but we haven't been for a while. So we import most of British Gas is not even owned by us. So most of the stuff we have to import. We were meant to take advantage of our North Sea oil, but a lot of that is really good low quality stuff. It's not like the good stuff you get in Nigeria, so it's very expensive as well to do exploration in those regions. So we put ourselves in a position where we're going to have blackouts probably. I was expecting it actually this winter. They said if it's, and their terminology was, if it's a very, very cold winter, we'll have blackouts, but that's going to happen rapidly across the Western world, particularly if we have a very, very cold winter again. So my point is, if the lights go off, then you're done for. Yeah. And one of my clients in Texas, he made a really good point a couple of years ago. I don't know if you remember, Prince Hakeem, Texas had a huge blackout for about 4 or 5 months. And it was really weird because that's one of the richest states in the world, you know, but they had a blackout 3 or 4 months. And one of my clients said, he said, look, Clive, and I can't do a Texan accent, but he said, look, Clive, you know, I got this gold coin. He said, you know, I'm a millionaire in Bitcoin, but when the lights go off, I'm worth nothing, you know. But with this coin, I could trek through the snow for the half an hour and go and knock at John's door and I give him a coin, and he'll give me fuel and food for the month, you know. And I can't go to him with a laptop, you know. He'll be like, what do I do this? No, I promise there's Bitcoin on there. It's worth something, you know. So we're in a world where gold is going to be used more and more as a form of exchange. Okay. But that's my view on Bitcoin anyway. But it's a period. I wouldn't. The other thing as well, cover it really quickly, is the technology is using cryptography. Cryptography has been around since the Second World War, and if you guys know what cryptography is, it's a series of long code. Capital letters, lower caps, numbers, and it's a long sequence of codes. Now, we're in an age where we're introducing new computing by the name of quantum computing. Yeah, and quantum computing, I won't bore people, but it's like how our brain works, off electrodes, really complex stuff. A computer works off a binary, 0, 1, 0, 1, and all of that. Yeah, but this is next level computing. Once that gets introduced, it could break a crypto code like that. Okay, and no one's really talking about that. So, and you know, so that again could be an issue. Okay, but I don't want people saying to me, oh, it's 200 like next week, it's gone up to 200, why you told us not to buy it? As I said, I like it, and I have a little bit of money in there, but I know what I'm doing. I work with experts in the field that run their own platforms and stuff, but it's a very, very small amount which fluctuates, you know, up and down like nobody's business. All right, so I hope that makes sense on the crypto side.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. But there is other coins you can look at that actually may play a part into the new digital system coming into play. HBAR and Quant is a couple you may want to look at. They are deemed to play a part in the new CBDC stuff coming out, that control nonsense stuff that they're going to introduce to new money. And if you can pick the right ones, you know, who knows, they could do quite well. Okay, but that might be some that you might want to look at. Okay. So what I wanted to, now we've covered those points, I just wanted to talk about some of the points we hadn't covered before. For example, everyone's saying, well, do I buy property, or, you know, should I buy gold? I saw a few people had asked that previously, and I'll cover that briefly. Firstly, I'm not a property expert. What I do, like Henry Ford does, is if I don't know about a particular subject, I employ people that are very experienced, and I pay them to give me all the knowledge. I also work with people that are experts. I sell them gold that are estate agents, and I listen to them. Now, we've got estate agents going bust at the moment. We've got a record number of defaults, and people don't know about this because the press are not allowed to talk about it. They want to keep the property market as high as possible, okay? But the basic economics 101 is when we have an economic crash, particularly a banking crash, which we're in at the moment. And since I last spoke to you, we've had First Republic go down, one of the 18th largest bank in the US. This is a major one. And that's in the process of going down as well. So when you have a big banking crash, property always crashes straight after that. Yeah, it's always been like that ever since the 1920s Great Depression. Okay, so that's a fact, as simple as that. But then if you want to peel back the layers and have a look, well, what's causing it? Well, let's look at a lot of our clients. They can't afford to pay their mortgages. We've got grown-ups crying on the phone. I've been in investment 25 years. I've never had adults crying on the phone before, because their mortgage has gone from 1,500 quid to, you know, £3,000. So they're defaulting, and we're going to have record numbers of delinquencies hitting the worldwide market from the Americas. I mean, if you've got any Canadians, I mean, that market is going to crash big style. I mean, price per square meter is one of the largest increases in the Western world. So they're going to drop massively. Plus Trudeau didn't buy any gold as well. And same in like Japan and Americas and the UK. We're not the highest, but ours has been massively inflated as well. So the market's due for one of the biggest crashes ever. So what you want to do is you want to do what we call the wealth cycle. And you guys can Google this. Mike Maloney, who I spoke about before, big advocate of the wealth cycle. And a lot of my Jewish clients live by it. And I mentioned this before. Do you remember that I was showing you the chart? It looks like an infinity or a number 8 you know, put sideways. And what you want to do is just buy the hell out of gold, wait for it to reach its peak in years to come. By then, the property market would have dropped, and then you just fill your boots for property. So I have a Jewish conglomerate I work with. They're
Tu travailles avec
48,000.
un juif.
Yakoi.
Yeah, we have the 48,000 flats in the UK, houses, commercial units, buy-to-lets, quite a lot. I mean, you're talking, that's a few billion. Last year, the Sun called me up and said, Clive, we're out. We're selling everything. You know, get out of property yourself. So I started selling some of my international properties as well. And what they'll do is, and he didn't sell all of them. I think he's got about 160 units left. I don't even speak to the father. These are big people, but I work with his son. And he said, look, we've got about 120 units left we can't sell. And what they'll do is they'll buy the likes of gold from me. They'll make 2, 3, 4 times their money, 5, 10 times, whatever. We don't know how it's going to go, this one. And then they'll jump back into property, and they won't buy about 42,000 houses, flats and commercial units. They'll buy about 80,000 for the same money. And then they just keep doing that. And it's really simple as long as you kind of follow that. So I just wanted to cover a little bit on property. Also, in this small print in the last budget, what they're going to do is they're going to introduce a mortgage bailout. That's the next thing. So they're going to introduce loans to help people not default. Now, obviously, if you've got someone that can't afford their mortgage, can't afford their gas and electric, can't afford their food, and you're now going to give them a loan, in the long term, what are you going to do? We're creating even more debt. Right. So that's coming, but that's going to cause a dead cat bounce. So before the property market drops massively, it probably bounced back up due to these loans and then boom, straight back down again. Yeah, because the problem with property is one of my clients, he's got an estate agent in Mayfair. And he said, Clive, they're going to introduce self-certs, right? It's going to crash, introduce self-certs again like they did before. Do you remember? And he said, the issue is, in London, we've had so much black money that we've cleaned for housing from overseas, which was all blind, you know, all blind eye, and all that money's been cleared. And that's what's pushed up the market. So in Mayfair, he used to have young kids come in, 22, 25 years old, 2 Rolexes on each arm, and they'll come and sit down and they'll say, right, give me that flat for $1 million. Give me that one for 10 million. They don't even want to see it. Just manage it for me. It'll say, where's the money coming from? My dad will send it from Singapore. My dad will send it from Russia, whatever. And this was happening 2, 3 times a week. He hasn't had anyone come in for nearly a year. Right. Yeah. And that black money had pushed the market up so much. It created such overvaluation that when this poo hits the fan, it's going to come down big styly. Yeah. So that's kind of what pushed the market up quite a bit. Plus there was a lot of free money. You remember, a lot of people had these grants, free loans, they put it into the market, the property market, not realizing they're buying at the peak. So the wise money at the moment is not buying property, they're buying gold, obviously. But also there is an area in property which could do quite well, which is agricultural land. Right. Yeah, I'm not just a gold advocate. If you can own land and it can produce food, we're going through the biggest food crisis in history. Right. You know. So yes, it's that's sort of the only property it's worth buying. Hence why Bill Gates bought up all the agricultural land in the US and deciding to poison our backsides. So yeah, but that's another story. So yeah, so that's the. Is there any other questions on that or anything?
No, I'm loving it. This flow as you see fit, brother. I'm loving it.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the first thing, because everyone was mentioning about property. The other thing I promised you guys I was going to go into detail about was the 1970s run, because we are expecting a similar run to what we had in the 1970s. Could you bring up for me, please, chart 3 by any chance? Yeah. Just going to show you guys something. Now, for me, my ethos in trading, in managing clients in gold, is to understand history, and therefore I can help me predict the future. So if I can make 2 quotations, Churchill, further you look back into the past, allows us to see further into the future. Mark Twain, I think he stated, history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes. Okay, so if we have a look at the 2 previous rallies where we're or 2 previous economic downturns that are similar to this environment, let's see how gold had fared. So the one that I'd mentioned to you previously was in the 2008 recession or 2007. Yeah, however you want to state it. And I'll talk about that one in a sec. Let's cover this one now, the chart's up. So in the 1970s, what you'll see there, guys, as stated there in writing, is we have two charts overlaying each other. The one in red is tracking 1970s gold bull run, and the one in yellow is obviously the one in yellow is tracking the previous bull run in the 70s, and the one in red is tracking where we are now. And you'll currently see we're at about 1978. So the movement in gold now in this inflationary period is pretty much identical to the movement that we saw in the 1970s. It's uncanny. I mean, so the upside potential is phenomenal just based on this simple chart. Do you know what I mean by it rhymes now? Yeah. So I just wanted to highlight, so you can take that off now. Thank you very much. And if we have a look at, well, okay, it went up 24-fold. It went from 30 quid to like 700. Everyone got stupid rich. Imagine making 2,400%. I'd expect a lot of Christmas presents, guys. You know? but let's have a look at the 1970s. So I'm born in 79, so I've had to study it or speak to my clients and hear it from the grapevine. So, but it was, we had an oil embargo, energy situation, we had riots, yeah, and we had a lot of strikes across multiple platforms. What are we witnessing today? Same madness. But the reason why gold went up so much in the 70s was due to demand. And by the way, inflation's twice as bad as the 70s, yeah, if not worse, okay? But in the 1970s, the average Joe, whether you was a street cleaner or you was a teacher, you could afford to buy a house, and you could afford to pay for that house, pay it off in a few years, all right? So not everyone had debt. Not a lot of people had debt. They could afford, they had proper assets. So we're in a much worse situation today, yeah? So population-wise, we've got 18 times more people. We've got 55 times more currency that can chase gold. The market capitalization is about 50 times bigger because we've printed all this money and pumped it into the banks and all that sort of stuff. It's 50 times bigger. So meaning that all of that money, that trillions of pounds, all it takes is for 1% of that stock market money to go into gold, and we've run out of gold. And I will repeat this, we will run out of gold, guys. Yeah. So whoever can buy it now will certainly look to reign king. What else? We talked about in the 70s, the demand was just, the rise was due to the massive demand. Well, that demand in the 1970s was mostly from America and the Western world. And my lights have decided to turn themselves off in the office. Anyway, it's just me in at the moment. Can you, I take it you can still see me clearly, yeah?
Yeah, we can still see.
It makes it a bit more romantic. Yeah, I'll light a candle in a minute, I promise. We'll see a glass of wine soon. So, on a serious note, in the 70s, the populations were much smaller. I think it was 18 times smaller, yeah? And the most of the buying was from Europeans and Americans, and, you know, and those were the key markets. Guys, the world is much bigger. Let's look at the two main other regions that couldn't buy gold. So you had the USSR, right? Former USSR. Now, what are they doing? Well, Russia and Putin is begging his people to buy gold. He's nearly giving it away, you know, loads of tax incentives like what's happening across the US. So the Russians are buying gold now. The USSR, it was completely illegal to own gold. You get your hands chopped off and you get molten lava poured over your head. In China, again, you could not buy gold under Mao. Yeah, it was completely illegal. You will get in prison for a very long time. China and USSR, I mean, these markets are like half the world population. They're buying gold now, and they're buying a hell of a lot of it. And that's why I think this rally might be bigger than 24-fold. I genuinely believe that, and many other top analysts do as well. So, so that's my reasoning on the 1970s. In the last recession, though, 2008, she tripled. And, you know, when I talk about everything repeats itself, well, 15 years ago till last week, we had JP Morgan bailed out Bear Stearns. It was a bailout weekend, and that was 15 years ago to this week. And then Lehman Brothers, 6 months later, they would fail, and that was the start of the great financial crash. And then the stock market dropped 50%, the property market dropped, I think, 20-30%, and gold soared threefold. You know, and that was just in 08. Now, let's compare ourselves to '08. Well, it's a bit different. Today, we've got the COVID, as we called it, the biggest medical fraud. I'm glad I got our hands up on that one before. We're still licking our wounds for that. We've got war next door in Russia, which is getting ever worse. And we've got the Sudan situation because Sudan let Russians have a base on the North Sea. And America said, I told you not to do that. And now they've created civil war in the country. Yes, I bet you never knew that. And it's all America's doing. Anyway, that's another subject. But, you know, in the last recession 15 years ago, she tripled. And when I talked about the market capitalization, how much money there is to chase gold, well, let me give you an idea of how big these banks are now from '08. Well, the first bank to go bust was SVB. Okay. And by the way, it was a crypto friendly bank. And that's another reason to be careful, because we have people here that had 200,000 in FTX and lost everything. Yeah. So most of the clients in SVB have lost their money. Most of the clients at Credit Suisse, which went down the other day, have lost their money, including Sharon Stone and all these celebrities and that sort of thing. In the SVB, the first bank to go down, it's worth a couple of trillion. Okay. That one bank is worth more than all of the banks of '08. Wow. That's how much shit we're in. That's why we've printed more money in the last, say, 3 years than we've had in the last 50 years. Yeah. And that's why this huge dilution issue has happened. And that leads me to another point. So guys, like, I travel the world. First time in the last 2 years, I've traveled with the pound and people don't want it. Right. In Jamaica, they will not take the pounds. This is madness. Yeah. They would bite my hand off for the pound. They do not want it. Yeah, because remember, it's gone 1 for 1, like we talked about before. Yeah. And you're going to see that happening, and it's going to go to zero, as every fiat currency has gone to zero throughout history. So as I said, I promised you guys I'd give a clearer picture of why it could rally, like we saw back in the 1970s. Is there any questions at this stage?
No, everybody's keenly listening.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay, let's bring up, if you could bring up the first chart for me, please. And let me give you an idea of where the gold price is today. Okay, guys. So, by the way, I'm a chartist, but I hadn't done charting nearly 20 years, but I know what a Fibonacci chart is and candlesticks and stuff. And I promise you, I will simplify this as I do with most stuff. And it's really easy. This one is called a cup and handle. And you can probably see the cups, right, guys? Yes, so you've got a cup at the bottom forming. When you have this type of formation, it tends to have a very aggressive breakout. So we had a big one. And what year is that? I can't even zoom in. Could someone tell me? Oh, there we are. 1998. So till 2006, start of the great, the last rally. Remember I said 07, 08, and then it started shooting through the roof. And that was back on producing a cup. And off of that cup, it rallied. But you can also have what's called a cup and handle. So when you get towards the end of the cup, if you like, it starts to sort of go sideways, drop down a little bit, and perform sort of a mini cup, if you like. Put them together, it performs a cup. I know, very, very simplistic, the language, but they are actually called cup and handles. And if you can zoom out for me, please, you can actually see we're forming another one, but we've got a little bit of a handle at the end of it. Yeah, does that make sense, guys? So we're due a breakout, you know, and it's clearly what we call range trading, in this sort of range, bouncing in between it, building momentum. And you've got to see gold as like a Swiss clock. Yeah, it's just building momentum like a spring, then boom, you know, she's off. And what we're trying to do at the moment, particularly this year, is just get as many clients on the rocket before it leaves the pad. Okay. Because guys, you've got to realize, once gold's gone, it's gone. Yeah. Don't look back like you did, like all of you guys did. And you look back and you said, oh, everyone's got a computer. When I was younger, 20 years ago, why didn't I buy Microsoft? I knew everyone would have a computer. And if you put £5 into Microsoft, there you go, Tara, you know what I'm talking about. If everyone put a £5 in, you know, it'd be worth £250,000 today, even with the big drop. How many times have we looked at Apple? I do the same thing. Oh, I remember that in the 80s when it nearly went bust. I could have put £1 in, it'd be worth 100 grand. You know, so this is all hindsight, but don't make the same mistake with gold. Certainly less risk in those opportunities, because when she goes, she goes. She doesn't look back, okay? She doesn't look back. And when you guys were all wee lasses and lads, you know, I'll bet you it was about 50 to 100 quid an ounce. Then it started rallying up. It was flat for certain periods, but because we've created this boom and bust, it's now built this huge bubble, which is just going to explode. And that's why gold's just due this big rally again. So I just wanted to give an idea of, she doesn't look back. And she's an old girl. She doesn't move quickly. You know, she gets out of bed, she's got to put her teeth in and put her slippers on. You know, you got to have patience with her. But if you hold on, you know, and you hold on tightly, I promise we'll see it out. So yes, I just wanted to cover that. What else? The CDBCs, I think, important topic. I'm surprised nobody's asked me about that. So we've just had news out that a lady by the name of Christine Lagarde, she has just stated they're going to roll out in September the dates for the CDBC. Rubbish. So what CDBCs are, and I've got actually a very clear definition here, guys, which I've been using for years because I knew this was coming many years ago. And I'm going to explain why it's come in. It's come in because when we go to the barbershop and we give the guy that £10 to cut our hair, or the 20 quid, you know, plus our tip as well, obviously, they don't know if that guy's paying taxes, right? And they don't know you've paid him. Now, for years, because there's been this increase of control and surveillance, and they're trying to introduce it through fear, through diseases and all this crap, and all the rest of it, they want to be able to track every payment we do real time, okay? The other big problem is that people don't pay their taxes, particularly, you know, in countries, whether it's back home in Africa's or the Caribbean's, you know, not a lot of people pay their taxes. So with a system like this, they can tax from source. Yeah, which is very, very scary. The bank has always given us an air of protection because the taxman can't go into your bank and take your money, but now he can. So what we're looking at here is a world where limitless control over your money. It's going to be implemented different types of interest rates for different types of people. So for the votes that count, you know, their mates get sorted out. For the votes that don't count, you don't. And what CDBC is, it's just digital fiat. The problem that they got, these guys that want to get richer and richer, is they have to print. And money's not paper, by the way. It's made from, I think, cotton and other materials. But it takes a long time to print money, particularly at the rate America does it in the trillions. Can you imagine how hot those presses are? So it takes time and then transportation and all the rest of it. But with digital money, you just press a button and just make credits within a second. So all their mates get rich overnight and stuff while we suffer. And that's why another reason we need gold, because it keeps us independent of that. They can't control it. They can't manipulate it. They can't dilute it. You know, we're the bosses. We're the gods, if you like. You know, we own the power. And so I just wanted to cover CDBCs. So this lady is going to roll out in September all the dates for how it is called the Britcoin. What they've done is called it Bitcoin, but they put an R in it. Yeah, so people think, oh, it's Bitcoin, that nonetheless. And I bet you millions of people will buy it thinking they're Bitcoin. And it's a shame because once you're in the system, you're in. And what they'll do is they'll dangle a carrot, okay? And they'll say, guys, right, this goes. I relate it to another control stuff, and it's a little bit off topic, but I think we should all be educated on this. The 15-minute city ball crap, yeah? So in every London area, including my area, all the roads have been closed off. So, sorry, all of the back roads, you know, they put the plant pots there and all that, and it's still all nonsense. The reason they've done that, guys, is so you can control traffic. So when they start blocking up and turning each city into 6 zones, you'll only be able to travel one way, and then they can monitor you coming in and out, and you're only allowed in and out X amount of times. And if you're a good boy and you stay within your zone, you get free credits, yeah, for your energy and your food. And if you break that and you come out of the zone and stuff, you know, you don't get any credits, and all that sort of Mickey Mouse control, you know, catch a monkey type of stuff, which is ridiculous. So that's how CDBCs are going to sort of be introduced to people, and they'll introduce it first like they did in Jamaica. Here's, you know, a couple of £100 first, you know, and welcome to the system. And unfortunately I got text message and I'm in a lot of groups obviously, and some of them are like, why me have the thing, yeah man, we can pay that bill and you must, yeah, you join in and you get to 300, an extra 100 and blah blah. Sorry, that was a terrible accent. I'm really tired. I generally have a better accent. I am half Jamaican. I have a better accent than that. But anyway, they were really excited and I got really annoyed. So I went onto the chat and I said, look, what the hell are you talking about? Let me explain what this is. This is a control thing. Yeah, you're not helping anyone. If anything, you're helping them. And it was like, oh, why? So they can tax me from source. Oh shit, man, I downloaded this thing and blah, blah, blah. And what, you mean everything I do, they have to monitor it? Yes, of course. So when we used to have these penny jars and we could save ourselves and we could give to the tramp on the street, none of that's going to happen again. And the friggin' scariest part, without swearing, because one should in this crazy part, but we're not, because we're good and spiritual. But it is that mad though. It does get you frustrated, because imagine a world, right? I mean, how long have you worked, Doctor, for roughly? 40 years of your life? What, 30, 40 years of your life? Most people 25. And imagine all of that wealth. For the first time ever, you're never going to be able to touch it or feel it or see it. You know, and I don't think people actually grasp that. But with gold, you know, you have a whole gold in your hand. You got your own bank in your hand. I mean, the stuff's magical anyway. It vibrates at this unique frequency. It's healing. That's why the Egyptians from the Mayans to the Aztecs fell in love with it. You know, they realized it was always wealth, and then the Spanish and all the rest nicked it off of them. And that's how they became very wealthy. So yeah, so I just wanted to cover that point on the CDBCs. Obviously, there's much more to talk about, but that's basically the basics. All right. Is there any questions or anything at this stage?
There was a question in the chat. I'm not sure if you want to address it now or later on, but it was asking about steps for those with low income to, you know, the entry point. What steps would they take to enter?
Okay, so minimum investments usually start from 1,000 or 2,000, but I think you mentioned if you wanted to get a group of individuals together, you know, and buy some, that's fine. It's just, you know, you could buy gold for probably £20, but it'd be so minute and it just won't be good value for money. And that's why it's important that we all try and buy ounces and above, because that's where you get the best value for money. I mean, we've got clients coming in now at 500,000, $1 million plus, that are selling their houses, selling up their pensions, you know, and literally just building their own bank. So our average has gone up a lot. Average is about probably 10 to 20K at the moment. But look, we're here to help. You know, and if somebody said, Clive, you know, I've got only 500 quid, it's the last penny in my pocket, and please help me, I'm not going to say no. You know, we're here to help, but you really want to get a few grand together just to get a sensible level. Typically, to take advantage of this market, I mean, some of our clients start off on like 500,000. That gives them really good discounts in the market, because we can go and negotiate really good buying power. But you know, everybody's different.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. If you could bring up chart 2 for me, because I should have followed on from chart 1. That's my bad. That's where I get excited and go off a bit. This is a close-up, guys, of what I just talked about, that cup and handle. So I just want you to see it on a zoomed point of view. And you can clearly see we are due a breakout. And if you see that line, it says breakout. Now that's known as a support line, and the bottom is obviously the support's on the bottom, and the top is known as your resistance, and we can kind of see that we're in that, and it's hit the support a few times in the resistance, and it clearly can see we're going to see a breakout soon. But we might in the next month or so, I don't have a crystal ball, we might pull back in the next month or so, and everyone be like, oh, closer, it's going to the moon. Look, I don't have a crystal ball, because it's done really well. There's going to be profit takers, you know, we'll probably flush out some weak hands, and that causes the market to pull back short term. But remember, we're not chasing the price. If you're buying physical gold, it's not about saving 50 quid here, 100 quid here. So I don't want people calling me saying, oh, give me 50 quid discount. I don't want to hear it, because we're in this for the long term. We're looking at making multiples of a return. And also, let me make it clear that with gold, the beautiful part is that if it doesn't rally, it doesn't matter. It's always been a store of value for you. You know, it's not like sitting in the bank where it's going backwards. If you're holding sterling, you're going backwards, you're paying bank fees, and you're way below inflation. If on 100 grand, you're losing 10 grand a month in theory, you know? So, so yeah, it's, I just want to give you an idea. If you could go to the fourth chart for me, please, or picture. Okay, so let's go back to the banks. Let's see how serious this situation is. Now, can any of the team tell me roughly in 2008, you see it started from there. That was the last banking crash. And you can see that it's in the minus of billions. So is it fair to say about 100 billion minus on that last 08 crash? Could we all agree on that? Yeah. Okay, let's see where we are today, guys.
My goodness.
7.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's and gold tripled then. I wonder what it's going to do now. I mean, that's like 10 times as bad, right?
Yes.
And that's just the start. That is just the start. So I just wanted people to visualize exactly what my point was. If we could bring the last one out, please. I believe that's number 5.
Yeah.
And you're doing a great job, by the way.
Thank you.
Okay, so with number 5, we've got the largest outflows from European equities, and this is old. It's about a year old, but it just shows you that even if we go back since 2017, this is basically everybody outflows, meaning the money pulled out of the market. So this is all the smart money, all the big institutions. I'm sure you know, but the government in the US is run by the Federal Reserve. All these buggers have been buying and selling stocks, so they've been raising money and they've been doing insider trading, and none of them have been arrested for it. So all of the top people are out. They're all out, as you can see. Yeah, they've pulled out everything. That's one of the biggest equity outflows that we've seen. That's just in Europe. Now, the important part here, I think, even though it's a year old, and this is important, that they made those moves a year ago. Do you see what I'm saying? And the banks are going bust now. So they know what's happening. Because what they're going to do around the world is they're going to forcefully collapse the banks, and they're going to say, I think I said this to you before, guys, we're so sorry. Don't trust the bankers. They're horrible people. Here's CDBC. This is your savior. And here's some for free. Yeah. So that just gives you an idea, guys, of what. So we can take that off now. Thank you so much. So yeah, so I think that covers it. I didn't realize I've been speaking for nearly 50 minutes already. Time does fly.
Yeah.
Was there anything else that anybody wanted to understand in regards to gold? Or
We had a question, someone in the chat. If you'd like to come forward and ask your question, we can do that now. Alicia, you unmuted, Brother Adate.
Hello, hi, sorry, can you hear me?
yeah.
Sorry, my baby's in the background, so it might be a bit noisy. I just wanted to ask a brief question because I heard something previously, and I know you're talking about gold, but I heard that there is a chance that silver may increase, or is that incorrect? Because I started actually buying up a lot of silver and the case being, and hearing this, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Let's talk. So we did talk about silver in the last one. I don't know if you joined the first part. Had you graced us? Probably not. That's fine. So let's have a quick chat because we've got newcomers today into the second video, obviously. So that's fine. So let's have a quick chat about silver. First of all, I like it. I think it has a good upside, but she's done terrible in the last 2 years, flat as a pancake. Thank God I didn't go heavily on it, and I did like it, but I don't know what happened. I've just gone heavy on gold, and all it's done, it's gone up. Silver has a good upside, but in this country, it's 20% tax you pay straight away. So you get a punch in the nose. It puts us behind that 8 ball sort of straight away. But I like it. And I think it has good upside potential. And typically when gold rallies, silver can outperform it. But it's not a store of, it's not it's a store of value because silver was very easily exchangeable, particularly in the early 1800s. There's a history book actually on silver I was reading, very boring, but in the 1800s it was used regular throughout multiple industries as a form of exchange. Not so much nowadays, more so gold. With silver, a lot, 20% of it also is used on industrial demand. I think I mentioned this before. So your solar panels to your EV cars all have to have silver. And if everyone were to drive EV cars, it's impossible because there's not enough silver on Earth. Okay. And so it's heavily driven by that, but I think it has good upside potential. But the problem is it's just not tax-free in this country, unfortunately. I do have a small amount of it, but I'm like 90% gold because I can read it like a book. As I said, it doesn't give me grey hairs like silver, and thank God I did, because for 2 years all I would have done is been flat. Whereas my gold in the last 2 years, gold's gone from 1200 to 1400. So yeah, so that's my view on silver.
just to pivot a little bit, Clive, in discussing somebody saying, okay, we're going to take up what you've shared with us today, and it's so compelling. I want to say, come to your offices tomorrow. I want to buy maybe 20 ounces of gold, and I want to walk away with them. Now, if that person decides, okay, they want to travel, say, to the Caribbean next month, what's the process on them putting that in their hand luggage and taking it through customs? What's going to happen?
I think this was covered on the first one, and unfortunately, again, I couldn't cover it because there's so many different jurisdictions. And there's so many different rules for each different country. I mean, typically you can carry between 5 and 10 grand, on you. I mean, because we specialize in coins, I've had clients literally make a gold bracelet and then they've just put all their coins sort of attached to it. And that's jewelry. And so what? It don't look like jewelry, but if you call it jewelry, who's to say? And you can travel with that. But then that goes back to what you were saying, Akeem, about when we were boys and we were younger, with the chops and stuff. That was a great way to move money around and to save it. So it really depends on the jurisdiction in the country. Secondly, if you wanted to come to our office and walk away with that amount of gold, would be impossible. The office I'm in at the moment is an office, it's not a vault. So unfortunately, we're not insured to hold millions of pounds worth of gold, and we transact millions of pounds a month. But we do have sample gold here. If you wanted to come and see it or whatever, if you wanted to order it, we could have it delivered. We could have it delivered to our office if you want it ordered, and then you can come and collect it, or we can arrange a private safe for you. So we work with anyone from Brinks to Market Amit, which are in Heathrow, Hatton Gardens. And what I would do, and only if you're doing sensible levels, safeguarding, these 100, 200, 300K, that sort of thing. Otherwise, I think it's a waste spending money on storage. Most of our competitors, they'll always advise you to take storage because they earn a percentage off of it, but that's not good advice. There's no point storing 5 grand's worth of gold when it's like so dense and small, you can stick it in, under your mattress. So with the storage side, if we worked with one of our storage companies, we'll introduce you to them. It'll be your own private vault. They'll walk you into a secure room with multiple deposit boxes, and then basically you have your own deposit box, which we could see on camera is probably about so high, 6 inches high and so wide, and you can probably put up to 200, 300, 400 grand's worth. I think it's the most I've put into one box. But you also have the luxury of putting your own personal stuff in there because it's your own vault, your own stuff. But for a world in which we're in, where there's that increase of surveillance and control, I wouldn't want to do that because I don't trust nobody. And I shouldn't say that really because it's my own company, but I'm being deadly truthful with you. The fact is, the vaults we use, whether it's Brinks or Market Amit, I mean, these are very well secured vaults for hundreds of years. I think one of the vaults we use, the royal family use, we have SAS guards protecting the vault, electric barbed wire fence, you name it, you go in there, it's like Fort Knox. I mean, it's amazing. So yeah, we can do that for you, or have it delivered, which typically 99% of our clients have.
Okay, fantastic. Another question just for you. If you were leaving your children, grandchildren, if you had a load of cash, say monies that you had amassed over the years, you before, the time of their inheritance, would you transfer that into precious metal, into gold, rather than leave them cash?
Well, cash was once king. And it's not no more. It's far from that. I don't know, what would be the opposite? Would you say cash is slave now, opposite to king? I'll have to think of something.
I would say cash is a peasant.
Cash is a peasant. Because the problem is you leave your cash with your kids. The problem is the pound's lost. I did have a chart on this and I didn't want to bring up too much stuff, but the pound is literally just done that. So is the US dollar. It's just done that. So it's lost 98% of its purchasing power. Like, remember we gave that example when you had a shilling or a pound, you buy the bread in the first one. So it's illogical to hold sterling. That's why it's illogical to keep your money in the bank sitting on sterling. You're just losing, like the Jamaican dollar or the the naira or whatever currency you're in, you're losing hand over fist. I mean, the amount of Nigerians I've had that put a couple of million into Nigeria, into building projects across Delta and all the rest, and because the local currency collapsed, they've lost out big style. Even though some of the properties had increased, the currencies are collapsed, so you're screwed. Sorry, you're messed up on that side. So yeah. I would suggest, obviously, being a gold guru, please leave them gold, because my bloody parents didn't. And if you're on, my mum might be on. She said she might come on, and I did forget about it until you mentioned. But mum, where's my gold? No, but bless her. I love her dearly, and she's a big advocate of gold. And I've had to educate my dad. My dad, for the first time over the last couple of years, he had no idea it kept going up. He didn't know it. It showed 11% for 15 years. He's like, 11%. For 15 years. Why didn't the bank tell me that, Ross? And I'm like, oh, I'm telling you, here's
So
the
bank
chart.
invested in gold and kept that money.
Oh yeah.
Shareholders.
So all the central banks, you go in there, you go into your average bank and you say, help me. And they'll say, yeah, get an ISA and buy some shares and all this crap. ISAs are one of the worst performing asset classes today. If it's a shares ISA, you're buying a FTSE, which is near all-time highs and will half. Remember, Clive told you that. We're trading at 7.8, 7.9. I think we hit 8,000. I mean, think about it, guys. We got the FTSE at record highs in the middle of the greatest recession in history. It's the only time we've had a bull market in a recession. It doesn't make sense. It's bull crap. So that's why it's going to tank, big style. It's way, way overvalued. And don't take my word for it. Bank of England website quoted, we will have the worst recession in 300 years. So how's the FTSE at 8,000? So if you're holding an ISA and you're exposed to, shares, whether that's the Dow Jones for the guys in the US or whatever, the Dow's going to collapse, just like the NASDAQ had done first. It's collapsed, it's like half. Your Zooms and your Facebooks are down like 80%, some of them. So yeah, ISAs are not wise ones. Shares ISA, cash ISA, again, you're holding sterling is illogical. And if you walk into a bank, these are the things they'll recommend. But like you said, on the back, all these banks are going out and buying gold.
Right.
So, Clive, you're obviously very well read in this area, and there are those who would love what you're saying and want to take advantage of what you're saying, but there is fear and trepidation within them because spiritually they can feel that what you're saying is true and what you're saying is right, but there's a fear because they're so accustomed to looking at that money in Santander and Barclays, and there's this confidence of being associated with a high street bank. Now, what would you advise, brother, that people orientate their minds with daily to help to wean them off of this confidence, that they have in a system that really doesn't care anything about them?
Well, yeah, I mean, there was a time where we could trust our banks. So like when our nans used to go into the bank in the 70s and 80s, there'll be the fat guy in the pinstripe suit. They'll say, know your nan's name, come sit down, Julie, and offer her a glass of sherry, And that was when banks actually had reserves. That was when it was a real bank. So by law, when you put your money in your bank, it's meant to stay there. Just like the piggy bank on the side of your bed. When you put the money in there, it's not meant to have a hole at the bottom of it. It's meant to stay there.
Right.
So banks have introduced this FFR, fractional reserve ratio, and it's like 0 now. They're not allowed to lend, they don't have to hold anything. So every penny that goes in, it goes straight out to the next guy for his bank loan or his car loan or whatever. So I just wanted to cover, if you went to a bank, that it's completely different to once it was, because there's no assets in there. To answer your question in regards to fear of buying gold, and that relates to the education system that I talked about, that's sort of implanted this fear in our heads that anything outside of banking, stay away from. And that's just for you to read up and realize. I mean, I'll always quote the Bible, and I'm as I say, I'm not hugely religious, but I'm a big believer of faith, and giving. And that's why I love joining societies like you, because as I said, if you kind of give, you get back. And with gold, you've just got to kind of listen. There's two voices. There's one that's saying, you know, I don't buy it, it's risky, you can lose all your money. And then the other voice is like, oh, Clive's making sense, you know, I should buy it. And the Bible, you know, it's written a few hundred times in the Bible. It's always been wealth. It's never changed. And all you have to do is just look at the chart of gold over 20 years and you'll see that it's just rising. So, and it comes to that word procrastination, you know, and that's the biggest failure in finance or money management is procrastination, and don't let that take over. You've got to look at let's look at the very worst case scenario to cover this fear, yeah, which is very normal, and I have to deal with this every day. So worst case scenario, can gold go to zero? Can I lose you all your money? Well, no, it's never gone to zero and probably will never ever go to zero because it always has a value. Can gold halve? Can I lose half your money like you can with a Bitcoin trade? Well, gold is never halved, particularly with inflationary period like this. It's actually never gone down, as I said. So what's the worst case scenario for the average listener or the average person out there? Well, the worst case scenario is you leave your money in the bank, they have bail-in and you lose it all, you know? So for me, it's pretty much a safe bet, you know, in comparison to that other scenario. Yeah, I hope that helps.
Oh, fantastic. And there's a question in the chat by Yvonne Greaves, which says, what career would you advise young people to go into given the current economic system?
Sell gold, obviously I'd sell that. No, seriously, I mean, when I studied Mike Maloney years ago, and I'm talking 10 years ago, I knew a crash was coming. It was going to be giant. And I said, you know, I wanted to get out of banking. I'd made a living out of selling very high risk products, which, you know, loads of people made lots of money, loads of people lost money. And I just thought I don't sleep well at night. I don't really see doing justice. And I want to work with my people, you know, and I want to help and build up networks and stuff and help us reduce this equity gap between us and others. So, you know, I kind of made that push for that. So I knew there was always going to be a massive demand on what I have to offer, and hence why we're doing record business. So yes, gold is something that people need, and why not getting into an industry that people need? You know, there's other industries that they can join, and like my oldest daughter, she's 23. And, you know, she's got multiple businesses herself, and she has to be careful because some of them are luxury businesses. And, you know, you've got to be careful what you get involved. So the art market, you know, that's not going to do very well. Wine and whiskey and you know, expensive fast cars, you know, exotics and stuff like that, because we're in the greatest recession in history, and a lot of the demand for those type of industries drop. But on the flip side, though, if you look at the world's largest, one of the best performing companies, which is LVMH, you know, the designer, the guy that runs it is the richest man in the world. Now they're making more money than ever because during this recession, the richer are getting richer. And that's what they're spending on. So I would get involved in growth areas. I'll name a few. AI, we all know about ChatGPT, I think it is. You want to get involved in emerging markets, disruptive markets. Coding is, but again, you know, with AI coming in, it's probably going to take over coding. Even modeling, you know, it's hard to be, because there's an AI that produces digital models now. You don't need to get a model in the studio, you just get like a real one and you can post it on the site. So there's going to be it is hard, and it's a fantastic question, particularly for the kids, but it's just doing your research and just going into markets that are going to be recession proof. I mean, bailiffs, it's not a nice job, but they're going to make a hell of a lot of money in the next year or two. They already are. You know, they're going around and record clamping on people that are not paying their tax on cars now. It's at record numbers. You know, but again, do you want to be able to knock on someone's door and ask them for money when they can just about pay for their food?
Funny you should mention clamping of cars. I was listening to a post this morning where they were saying how to get around people clamping your cars, and they were saying to buy a clamp yourself on Amazon. Whilst they're clamping your car, you clamp their car.
Well, it's all fraud. It's all fraudulent. I mean, they're not legally, a lot of them, allowed to do that, and they get away with it. And a lot of the times, you could just, especially the red ones. I never told you this. Someone told me this, but you can just bend them off. You can't just bend them off. Anyway, I'm not saying do that, but
and to your point, I'm finding like cars on the high street, Clive, like being seized and being clamped on high streets. And I haven't seen that for a long time, where people are stalking people who have not paid their monthly finance, and literally just clamping their cars on major high streets. So to your point about the deepest recession, that we're entering into, the media obviously has a magical way of keeping our eyes wide shut. So by way of keeping our eyes wide shut and deceiving us so openly and blatantly, what would you advise, like, long term? Because you've spoken about and as we wind down, because I know we've kept you for a long time today.
It's okay. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, just the last few questions. So as the sterling and the economy of this country is really on its knees, and it seems like it hasn't bottomed out yet, what would be your advice in regards to, because most of us on this call, we have parentage from the Caribbean or from Africa. Is it time now to start knocking on the door of the Caribbean and Africa and starting to wean oneself off of Western countries?
Well, they're already doing that. I mean, we've got the biggest de-dollarization in history happening. So the world was about 70%, I think, reliance on the dollar. That's dropped to about 40, 50% from the numbers I saw the other day, and that's going to keep on dropping. So there's not a reliance on that anymore. Obviously, for the future, I mean, I have to say, just fill your boots of gold, because when we talk about how you said you saw clamping and stuff, remember there's going to be other industries. Oh, I think the whole office building's gone off now. It usually does after 8, I think, but I think you can still see me clearly. I bloody got sidetracked there. With gold, it is going to be our savior. I believe if we can buy enough of it, we can get out of the mess, because we're going to be surrounded by lots of crime as well, guys. Crime is going to go to record levels, because you've got the average kid going home and he's like, hi, mum. And mum's like, look, we don't have any gas today. Son, you got to do something. And they know what the son's going to do. And this is happening across millions of families across the Western world, and crime is just going through the roof. And we're letting them get away with it. We're not arresting them. Most of our prisons are filled. We're trying to build 2 super prisons at the moment. So it's going to get much, much worse. Drug dealers are making record numbers at the moment, and people will go more and more to drugs as the recession hits. And that's just going to cause anarchy across London. And this is just the tip of it. I mean, look at the young kids just going around stabbing each other for fun. It's not even for money or anything. It's just for street cred and thinking that they own their area or their land disputes. They don't even own it. So yeah, we're in a mad world. And with gold, I think it could be life-changing for us, and it can get us all out of the rat race. And it put us in a position where it gives us freedom, to do what we want. All you have to do is just buy it and be patient, because if it does rally like it did in the 70s, 2 grand can turn to 40 grand. We've seen that before. 10 grand can turn to 200 grand. So if you're patient, that there's a way out of this, and that's what I would say is stick to, because that's all the central banks have been buying for last couple of years, and they've been buying record amounts, and they're not buying it because they think it's going to go down, are they? They're buying it for a reason. So if we, as I said before, can follow their actions and not their words, we can possibly make a killing together.
Fantastic. So we're going to let you go, Clive. So in winding down, Sister Tara, we haven't heard from you, and Sister Silvina, just in winding down, are there any last closing remarks or questions you would like to ask us?
Let me see if I can get this back up.
Yeah, because we don't want him to get locked in the building.
Right.
Okay. I don't think it's possible.
I have a question, but I'm just want to know if I'm connecting these dots correctly. So what I'm hearing you say, number one, we need to buy gold for as much as we can afford. And number two, we also need to invest in land to grow food.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, I work with certain chief execs of some of the largest retailers, and they've been telling me for a year, Clive, just make sure you got some provisions. So I've been buying for the last year, and I'm probably early, but it's always best to be earlier than late, and it might not happen. And I've got I don't know, I've got loads of rice, I've got loads of pastas and tomatoes and, you know, cans and loads of cans. Get as much as you can, because we don't know what's going to happen. And we, you know, they would love, because remember, the whole point of this government, right, is to control us. And what's the best way to control humans is through fear, right? And if they start limiting food supplies, then fear goes up, easier to control, you know, and that's what we're going to see. And that's what we might see. So the guys that, you know, that are in the food industries and that they are saying sort of load up, because we might not have food. So if you have the ability to have some arable land, you know, that can grow, which is, I mean, I'm leaving this country. I'll probably go and live in Jamaica, but I'd still love this country. I love Britain. It's allowed me to get to where I am today, but I don't like the cold and waking up to grey skies. It's rather depressing after being here for so long. So I'm going to leave anyway, and I'll be buying land, and hopefully I can grow on it as well. And if you have the ability to grow on your own land, I mean, that's probably worth just as much in gold, you know, to be did. And the problem is that the food industry at the moment is so corrupt and so poisoned at the moment, more than ever before. You know, I was speaking to an elderly lady, and what was she drinking? I think she was drinking tap water. My nan still does that, and my dad does that. Now, if you ever drink the tap water in Jamaica, you literally can taste the bleach in it, the chloride. You know, and I'm like, Dad, you've been drinking it so long, can't you smell the chloride in there? That is not good for your stomach. No wonder you're getting stomach problems. So the food industry is one of the most evil and corrupt industries out there. So much poisons in there. If you can grow your own organic veg, then yeah, brilliant. That would be one of the keys to our wealth and happiness, because health is wealth, right? That's why I talk about it.
Exactly. And we covered on one of our shows, you know, how 90 to 95% of Black men who were in Martinique, who worked in the banana industry, who worked on these banana plantations, 90 to 95% of the men had prostate cancer or over enlarged prostate as a result of the pesticides that the French government had authorized to be used on these banana plantations. So when I looked at that and looked at the proliferation of such disease in our community, and then I looked how easy we are as a target, you know, I looked at things like plantain. Like nobody eats plantain other than us as Black people. So it's very easy to tie. When you look at how cheap a plantain is, you don't make any profit off of plantain. So therefore, the mere fact that we eat so much of it, we have to examine what kind of pesticides go into these types of foods that we crave so much because it's sweet, and we have an inclination for sugar, right? So to your point, I think it's very imperative that we definitely couple the accumulation of wealth with wellness.
Wealth and health. Yeah, I mean, I have a private doctor. I'm quite educated in multiple subjects, so I use I call her my belly doctor over here in Bromley, and she runs electrodes for you through you to basically see if you're allergic to certain things. And, you know, most things everyone's allergic to because, you know, they're so damaging. And one thing that the Black community don't realize, particularly with food, and we'll cover this really quickly because it's so important. I'm sorry to go off the topic of gold, but with most Africans and West Indians, we use oils. And I've told these guys that most oils cause cancers, particularly if they're from seed oils and plant oils, vegetable oils, nothing to do with vegetables. This is like stuff that's, I can't even put it into words, but this stuff is killing us through free radicals. And also with the plantain stuff, we eat a lot of plantains, but again, it can do quite bad stuff to us because it's so high in fructose, which people don't realize. And that's why the Black community have such bad diabetes, because their sugar levels are spiked up, which is something that plantain can do, which could have a detriment to you instead of, because it's quite high in potassium, like a banana. Anyway, I won't bore you, but yeah, it could be bad for you as well.
Yeah, very good, brother. Like, we've really enjoyed you so much. And, you know, the lights went out behind you, but the light in you stayed and got brighter. So
that's good. Sorry about that, guys. I'll get that sorted next time.
Oh, you're shining from the inside, and that's the most important thing. So we really enjoyed you, Clive, and we look forward to having you back on later on in the year, you know, to recap and, you know, go back over how things will change between now and towards the end of the year. And you can let us know some of the other things that you're doing. But we have really enjoyed you over the last 2 weeks. It's been a delight for us and all of our listeners. And I think just in the engagement in the chat and the comments of appreciation, you know, we clearly have done ourselves tremendous justice by having you here for the last 2 weeks. So if there are any closing words, Brother Clive, we would appreciate hearing them at this time.
I think I'll quote Mike Maloney. It's a gift from God to be able to buy gold this cheap. Just call me. There's 2 companies actually, Buy Bullion. Don't just Google Buy Bullion. One has a hyphen in it, which is us. The other one doesn't look very good. So it's buy-bullion.co.uk. Ask for Clive, and I'm happy to help you. You don't have to buy gold. If you want any guidance on anything, you know, I'm here to share knowledge. That's what we're about.
Fantastic. And listeners, it doesn't get any better than that. You have direct access to an expert. How much do you owe me now? How much do you owe Spiritual Injection? We always bring you the best. Our special guests are always those who are desirous of empowering their community. So thank you, Clive, and thank you.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me. Thank you so much for having me, guys, and listening to me for an hour and a half. I think I think my wife will get jealous talking this. She don't talk to me for that long.
Spiritual Injection, please take your devices off mute.
Okay, guys.
Guess the big round of applause and appreciation.
Thank you, Brother Clive.
Oh, wow.
Go ahead, brother.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you, brother.
Information. Thank you
Brilliant.
so much.
Merci, frère Clyde. Thank you.
Wow.
Thanks, Clive.
Thank you.
See you.
Fantastic.
Brother
Thank you,
Melissa as
brother.
well.
Well done.
Lovely.
Well done.
Fantastic. So, Sister Sylvina, please share with our audience what we're going to be doing on June the 3rd in regards to our special plans to bring over Russell Simmons.
Right, you do not want to miss this. Honestly, we have got the one and only Russell Simmons, a mogul in multiple areas. We are bringing him to the UK for our first annual Wealth Wellness Summit. He will be covering all things entrepreneurial, industry-based, health-based. You know, he's a yogi, biz yogi, to coin his phrase. And he will be there for 1 day only. We will have a range of opportunities from private yoga classes with Russell, meet and greets, dining opportunities with Russell. And they're all centered around the main event, the Wealth Wellness Summit. It will be hours of first-class information, the chance to get into the mind of I don't want to misquote, brother, I don't know if it's a billionaire, but I know it's certainly a multi-millionaire, and someone who has made, more to the point, he has been able to make multiple people millionaires too. Multi-millionaires too, on the cusp of being billionaires. So be there. The link will be posted into the chat. You can contact when you go to the link, have a look around the webpage. You can contact us for any further details. Now, there are a limited number of places for the Wealth Wellness Summit, and I would recommend that you make space, because as Abdul Hakim has said on previous weeks, there's none of this, oh, you know, I want to come, can you squeeze 2 more people in? We're using a very prestigious venue, and they are strict on their protocol around health and safety. Make the commitment. If you don't want to come, send someone else, send your teenagers, you know, to be exposed to this mind. I remember in our previous spiritual injections, when we first, in our inception, you know, we shared with you that, you know, people pay millions of pounds to spend a morning, you know, with people who have achieved these things. And I think as a community, we have to see the value. You know, if we can spend, you know, £200 on shoes, on a coat, on lighting, you know, these different things, as Clive was talking, you know, these consumer-based products, then surely we can spend an equivalent amount on knowledge that we can share and pass on. We can multiply what we get. We can get, you know, by the time you share what you get on the day, you know, it will work out to £5, right? You share it with 20 people, you know, that's like £5 you pay for the day. So come on, be there. And as I say, the team will be there, we'll all be there, and we'd love to have you along with us.
And it's going to be a wonderful weekend of activity, right? Like on Friday, we're hosting him at Soho House, and that's for those who have VIP tickets. Saturday morning, there will be yoga class, and the main event, as Silvina just mentioned, between 12 and 5 at the Jumeirah Carlton Tower, one of the most prestigious banqueting suites you will ever, you know, experience. And if I was you, I would go for the full VIP package, because after that, there is a private dinner with him with just 30 individuals, intimate dinner in a luxurious ballroom, also specially designed to cater for him and those who will be in attendance. So it's going to be amazing, okay? And in regards to the clothing label or the clothing line that he once created and designed, which was Fat Farm. You know, he sold that, I think, over 15 years ago. I can't remember when, for 600 million at the time. Right. People, before Jay-Z created Rockaware, he mentioned that he used to wear a design called Iceberg, I think it was. And whenever he would go to his concerts, he said everybody was wearing Iceberg. So he realized his worth, that if he wore something on stage, his fans would wear or go on, you know, purchase what he was wearing. So he went to meet the executives, he said, by admission of Iceberg, and said to them, you know, you need to break me off some of this money, because surely your sales have gone up as a result of my fans buying your clothing. And they literally chased him out of their offices. So as a result of that, he decided that he was going to start his own clothing line. So in starting his own clothing line, Rockaware, he said he got some sisters in a room to, you know, with some machines, and they tried to put this together and it wasn't working. And he went and sought the counsel of Russell Simmons. And Russell was the one who showed him and showed Diddy in regards to his clothing line, Sean John, and got them on their way to very successful clothing lines, which I think they both sold in excess of $500 million. So all of that to say, this is the mogul. This is the man who put together the record label that launched hip hop. And remember, 2023 is the 50th anniversary of the creation of hip hop. So you wouldn't have hip hop today unless you had a runway, you know, the creation of a label that would give rise to such a genre of music. And many don't know that, you know, the great Will Smith, you know, not made famous by slapping Chris Rock, but was very famous prior to that. But Chris, what's the man's name? His name so Brother was first signed to Def Jam Records. Some of you don't know that. But he was signed to Def Jam Records, and when he auditioned for the part Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, he was in a long contract with Def Jam. So he was of the mind that he's going to have to fulfill his obligations and he's going to lose out or miss out on his acting career. But when he went to Russell and let him know, Russell released him immediately so that he can continue on with his acting career. Big man. Let's get involved, as Sister Silvina said, and let's take advantage of the opportunity here in the United Kingdom, all right? And those of you who are outside of the country, hey, you may want to fly in. It would be worthwhile. So with that said, was there any other updates?
No, that was all from that. Make sure you stay tuned. Next week on the Spiritual Injection, we will be focusing on setting up trust funds, protecting your assets. And actually our guest, he said something to me so interesting. He said, having a trust fund is like having your own family bank.
We need one of those, right?
Right. So
yeah, fantastic. And you know something, Silvina, Tara, most people don't understand in regards to the origin of money. They don't know during the time of the Islamic rise on the Arabian Peninsula, that when you were an upright, upstanding person in the community, you could get a piece of paper and say, okay, pay such and such $500 and sign it, Abdul Hakim, sign, and take this to Tara, take this to Sylvina, and she will give you £500. Now, because my signature is on it, and if someone could get it and bring it to you, you would automatically give them the 500.
Yeah.
That's how paper money came into existence. And the Europeans got hold of our system, but it was based on trust back in those days. Because obviously, if someone's bringing a piece of paper with somebody who never pays their bills, you're no. if somebody had good reputation and they had a signature, you would give that money, and then that person would come and reimburse you. That's why you always hear stories of the Prophet Muhammad telling people, if they didn't have food, go to such and such shop and tell them that I will pay. And the person used to be able to go to the shop and say, oh, El Amin or Muhammad, you know, said I can have X amount. And they would always give it because his name was a name of integrity. Well, today is, I don't know whose name is on our money, but I don't know if that is a name of integrity. You know, because the devil only promises to deceive, right? So with that said, thank you.